Now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Bear Fallica. It's great to see you, man. But be honest, have you been bullied off the internet by Vol Twitter yet?
Yeah, so I was able to access your invite on my Twitter DMs. So apparently, I still have an active Twitter account, which is good. It's always fun. I love going through the responses to me what I said on the pod with Coach Donnan and Dane Tuesday. Like, I was okay. I'm not making it up. Like, someone told me that he had a concussion. He's been in protocol, and likelihood of him playing wasn't good. So if I'm wrong, then I'll be happily come out and say, hey, my intel was wrong. I'm glad he's healthy. I'm glad he's playing. But yeah, I got no reason kind of to make this up. But I did like the some of the highlights amongst the responses from the Big Orange Nation was why should we care what that fat nice 4-letter word has to say? He was fired from ESPN. Good. Yeah, I am a little overweight. Yeah, I'll give you that. But no, I was far from fired from ESPN and got a very nice contract from Fox in when my ESPN contract was up. And then the other one was why should we listen to him? He's going to be wrong anyway, like he always is on FanDuel with his picks. And last time I checked, I didn't have like the FanDuel deal to give picks on FanDuel. I have my thing with Big Noon Kickoff where we put a parlay up every week for the Big Noon Kickoff show that I give. But maybe they're confusing me either with Gronk and his touchdown spike or maybe even Kay Adams on FanDuel. So it's always good to no publicity is bad publicity, right? We'll see what happens. Hopefully Nico's healthy and hopefully he'll be out there, but I have my doubts.
Let the record show you want Nico to play.
Yes.
It's a better football game.
Of course.
If Nico plays. You're not throwing this out there trying to speak it into existence. And you are also, correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't ever remember a time in which you've gone on the record with intel kind of like that early in the week. And remember as well, if this is all self-seeking, you're doing it on one of your own shows, right, which all come out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, exactly, and not doing it on somebody else's airways, UGAsports.com. Like you're not doing that just for the sake of doing it. Like, is there ever an instance in which you were kind of on the record with something like that early in the week?
No, it's funny because I think back to the year, I guess it would have been 2007 or 6 when Kirk Herbstreit on game day, like the whole Les Miles, he's going to be the head coach at Michigan, and then it didn't happen. And Kirk's not in the breaking news business, and I'm not in the breaking news business. All I know is I woke up to a text on Monday, like, yeah, hey, guys, not thinking Nico's not going to play, concussion. All right, fine, someone I trust, but it's a man. Look. Maybe I hope he plays, but it's funny because there are a lot of times, people want to believe their head coaches and look, maybe he has practicing, maybe he's cleared protocol now, maybe he's better, but what do you expect a head coach to say the week of their biggest game of the year with college football playoff implications and the rankings come out? Of course he's going to be hopeful that his starting quarterback is going to play. So yeah, but I was thinking that too. Like afterwards, I'm like, this is why I don't go public with stuff that I hear. Usually, like in the past, I would pass it on to Pete Thamel, or now I do the same thing with Bruce Feldman if I'm hearing something, and I let them do the dig and let them get the credit for it. But yeah, I partially blame myself a little bit for it because I'm so comfortable and I'm friends with Coach Don and going back years from his time at ESPN. And he asked me to hop on. We're talking about the game. And then sure enough, I start talking about potential concussions and quarterbacks not playing. But yeah, no, I hope he plays because it's obviously a much better game with him in there. Without him in the game, I don't know how many points Tennessee's really going to be able to score. And on the flip side, I don't know right now the way the Georgia offense is constructed with Carson Beck struggling. How many points that Georgia offense is going to be able to put on the board against a really good Tennessee defense.
I was going to ask you that too, because I saw that opening line and thought, that's a little bit high. It's a little bit high for how much Georgia just got walloped by Ole Miss. And the things that Tennessee does well, at least with that defensive front, are really similar to what Ole Miss does well. And we saw how that played out with Georgia in an offensive line that just didn't have a chance. And I saw that opening line and I went, that's dang, I realize the recent history of this rivalry, but that's significant. Do you think it's a 4 point swing if we know for certain at the start of this game that Gaston Moore is the starter instead of Nico?
I think if Gaston Moore is a starter, I think we might have already hit 11 at some point earlier in the day. I know we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. I think I did see an 11 earlier today. I think it could hit 12 or 13. I think if Gaston Moore is indeed the starter, and probably it goes back down to about 8.5 if Nico was able to play. But I just wonder, do you think Tennessee, I know defensively, they certainly can give Georgia similar problems in terms of running the ball and the athletes they have on that front seven. But on the flip, do you think Tennessee can do the same things offensively that Ole Miss did that could give Georgia problems? Because I don't.
That's the issue. That's definitely the issue. And, healthy Nico or not, it's still been a work in progress with the downfield passing attack. Ole Miss took advantage of some of those spots. They were able to hit on the downfield passing attack. And it's not like Georgia's run defense has been a doormat. It's actually been a lot better in the last month. What does Tennessee do best? They run the football with Dylan Sampson. They run the football with him. And if he can't get going, well, obviously then Tennessee's going to be susceptible. But it feels like a game in which you wonder which offense is going to make the less catastrophic mistake and who can benefit the most, similar to Georgia and Texas, where obviously Georgia was able to benefit from the mistakes that Texas made.
And that's like one of the old coaching adages and cliches 101 is like bad loses more than good wins. And I think that's probably the way that I would expect Kirby Smart and Josh Heupel probably to go about this game, because especially in the instance of Georgia, like their bad offensive performances have cost them games with turnovers. So I think you'll probably see a very safe game plan from Georgia, at least early on, and maybe if they get up, they'll open things up a little bit. But yeah, look, I think part of the angst from the Tennessee fans is maybe there's a little bit of writing on the wall, and I am friends with a couple of very big, diehard Tennessee fans who went to school there, and I think they see the 10-2 win over Alabama potentially being left out of the playoff. That's where we're going. And look, I get it. Like I thought the rankings on Tuesday night were comical. Again, I didn't get too worked up over it because obviously the two highest leverage games of the year are the next couple of weeks, with the game in Athens on Saturday and then Indiana, Ohio State next week. But like I think people see the writing on the wall where you're going to have potentially a 10-2 SEC team that might be, just because of numbers, on the outside looking in. Like if you're in the SEC right now, you are rooting for USC to beat Notre Dame in a couple of weeks to give the Irish a second loss, because I don't know if they necessarily would be. And even though it would be hard not to take Notre Dame over Texas A&M if it came down to that, should the Aggies be in that conversation as well. But like it's all playoff based and driven. Look, I get it, but yeah, the way the rankings came out on Tuesday and essentially appeared to be just ordering teams in number of losses was kind of laughable. Like, how the hell do you have Miami at 9? Like, look, I'm a Miami alum. There's no way you can have them ahead of some of the teams that they are ahead of right now. How do you move BYU up 3 spots off of a win over a 4-5 Utah team, penalty aided against a Utah team that clearly is not the team that we thought they were? And then you've got Indiana off of probably their worst performance of the year, over a win over the biggest name they have of the year. But this is a very bad Michigan team. And I think that win probably drew more questions into how good Indiana is, and basically solidifying thinking that they are certainly a top 4, top 5 type team right now. So it's amazing between Indiana and Texas getting the boost, the apparent boost that they are for a win against a bad Michigan team is pretty amazing, because you got number 3, number 4, and number 5 right now, Indiana, Texas, and Penn State. 0 wins over teams currently ranked, and you got Alabama down there right now with 4 all by themselves. So Alabama's got more wins over current ranked teams than the entire top 5 does right now combined. Now, granted, that'll change because someone's going to lose in South Carolina, Missouri. LSU may not be done losing, so we'll see. But yeah, the way the rankings went out last night kind of were a little head scratching. But like I said, I am not going to get too worked up for it until we see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
It was kind of righting the wrong of last week with BYU and with Indiana too. I mean, and look, and I'm going to come off biased probably by saying this is an Indiana grad, but we're looking at a situation in which the selection committee clearly had a lot of pushback to BYU and Indiana. They move ahead of Tennessee. You obviously knew they were going to move past Miami. They were going to move past Georgia because of those teams losing, but to move them past Tennessee, it was almost like a quiet little, we hope somebody doesn't notice this and doesn't realize that the wins itself were not really separators. It was just, we messed up last week and we needed to do this week.
And it's hard because I think Indiana is pretty good, but you're not going to win a resume battle with any of these teams.
Agreed.
You haven't had the opportunity to win. Like Rourke has been, saying he's going to win Coach of the Year. Rourke has been a great story. Like, they've been the poster child for what you can do with a great coaching hire and proper use of the portal and NIL and getting people in there. It's just unfortunately a fact that their schedule's 100th in the country. Now, look, I know you can only play and you can only beat the teams on your schedule, but I just hope as a college football fan that they don't go to Columbus next week and lose by 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You saw Nebraska go to Columbus, fight and nearly win, had a couple of possessions inside the 5-yard line where they couldn't score touchdowns, and that ultimately cost them the game. You go to Columbus, you play well. I don't think you're going to be out of the playoff at 11-1, but just don't give the committee an opportunity to really hold that schedule against you and the fact you haven't beaten anybody good. Because we saw that usually we'll see the committee kind of use their guidelines, and last year for the first time they had a very controversial call in leaving Florida State out because they had the stipulation in their guidelines for ranking teams like teams as they're currently constructed, and clearly Florida State was not the same team as without Jordan Travis as they were with him, and if you were going to take Alabama as an SEC champ in the playoff, you had to take Texas. They were connected at the hip, and now this year as well, like quality wins, head-to-head comparison, all that stuff is going to come into play. And if Indiana they're not going to win a resume battle with anyone. So you're just going to have to come down and say, we think Indiana is better than whomever else. And if that's the case, fine. They are. But it's so funny because in the beginning of the year, I was like completely, I don't want to say like nonplussed or against, but like 12 teams, I was always a 4 guy. I always said, like, you're not really expanding the number of teams that has a chance to win the college football championship. You're really just expanding the number of teams that are going to talk about it and get in the playoff and keep an interest longer. I kind of like disagree with my pre-season thought now. If you look, like I thought it was Ohio State and Georgia and everybody else prior to the year, but you can throw Oregon in there now. You can throw Texas in there. I think you can throw Ole Miss. I think any one of those 5 certainly could wind up winning the national title, and that's good for the sport.
It is. It definitely is. And I think, I heard Big Cat talk about this with Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman talking about how, if we had that take 5-6 years ago, it's totally plausible and it makes sense. But now with the way that talent it's seemingly spread out more with NIL and the portal and the way that teams can address roster needs, there's more teams that can win a national championship. So that's definitely part of it. I want to talk about your school because I need everybody to know that I didn't just hit you up after Miami lost or something like that.
Sure you did.
We set this up a week ago. Miami was still undefeated at the time. But you seem to have a pretty measured take on what this team is because, on one hand, as a Miami fan, like Cam Ward has an obvious path to get to New York, of course, and very well could be the first Miami quarterback since Vinny Testaverde to be drafted in the first 3 rounds, which is just insane. Yeah. And on the other hand, Miami has this obvious weakness, it every single time they step on the field that they can't tackle, and they probably don't have a loss to give at this point. Where are you at with this team, and are you trying to soak this in while not being too critical of the potential hurdles that could await?
As I've said, I'm in a very large Miami group chat with a lot of people in the industry and people close to the program and former players and such. And I basically said every single one of us prior to that Florida game would have signed up for 9-1 right now and 3 wins away from the college football playoff. It's a fact. I said we because we're all mostly alums in there. I said we very easily could be 7-3. Some might say probably should be 7-3, but we're not. We're 9-1. You beat Wake Forest, you beat Syracuse, you go to the ACC championship game. You're playing for the college football playoff. Every single one of us would have taken that before the year started. Now it's because of you were undefeated. Cam is probably going to New York. The excitement of the offense, like people are a little bit disappointed now because you had that little bit of glimmer, like maybe we could win the national championship, maybe we could go undefeated. But the way that you hit on it, defensively, they've got some issues. Barron and Bain have not been finishing plays in terms of getting sack numbers that I think a lot of people thought they would get. The secondary has been giving up big plays. You mentioned the tackling problems, like that. That was the biggest alarm to me on Saturday. Was you knew Haynes King couldn't throw, and they're essentially running what felt like 3 or 4 plays, the same one the entire game, and Miami just couldn't get them off the field. So that's the problem. But again, I did not view this team as a national championship team coming into the year. It was always get to the playoff. Maybe you get a home game or whatever else. Maybe you win a game and you're in the semifinal. That would have been a great year. And those goals are still there. I think the game at Syracuse in a couple of weeks could be tricky because they can obviously move the ball and they can score. And I'm sure the fans at the I don't know. Are they calling it the Carrier Dome? It's something else. It's not even the Carrier Dome anymore, right? Yeah. It's something else. Yeah, they'll be worked up to try and beat Miami. But yeah, I'm hopeful that they can win out and get to the. But you're right. If they were to lose either to Syracuse and not make the ACC title game, or if they were to lose in the ACC title game, the league just does not have a non-conference win to hang a hat on. And Florida certainly is not the team that. I shouldn't say people thought they were going to be because I don't think people thought Florida was in for a great year. But you look at Miami and the escapes that they've had and some of the game control metrics and the strength of record and such. They are. I think the ACC is a one big lead, and I think the Big 12 ultimately is a one big lead, is big league as well.
I think Mario deserves a lot of credit for putting this team in this position, having the ability to recognize those roster needs, being able to fundraise to get the NIL money when it was clearly a bidding war to be able to get Cam Ward. And, at the same time, though, how big of a window missed would this be for him? Because you look at the ACC right now, you look at the favorable schedule, you look at the spending on this roster, and you have the quarterback, like you have the guy finally. And I'm not saying it's similar to the 2017 Mark Richt thing where you saw that window come and go in a span of about 3 years.
That was a complete smoke and mirrors league team. That was for sure.
But how devastating would it be if this Miami team didn't find its way into the college football playoff? Because I agree with you. I think if you make the playoff, successful season, keep it rolling, no matter what next year looks like, you can be like, as a sports fan, you can have your appetite satisfied from that. But anything short of that feels like it would just be a brutal development.
It would be a massive failure and massive disappointment based on the schedule that they had in the league and how down Florida State is, how down per se Clemson is. You'd have SMU coming in from the group of 5 potentially to wind up winning this league. Like you maybe. It would certainly mean I would think a change of defensive coordinator with Lance Guidry. Who knows if Shannon Dawson is going to be back next year as coordinator. His name has kind of been floated out there for some head coaching jobs. You're one and done with Cam, and you probably don't have your quarterback for 2025 on the roster. So you're kind of back to portaling in a quarterback again. So yeah, it's a rough cycle, and who knows what the schedule is going to hold for next year. It would be a huge disappointment for not just the Miami fans, but for the coaches and the players and everybody associated with the program. If for some reason they don't find their way, and you go to the SEC championship game and you lose to your former offensive coordinator and a bunch of former Canes who are at SMU right now in that ACC title game, that would be a very, very, very hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
God, I didn't even consider the Rhett Lashley element to this. That's a good point. It's a really good point. Who are your Heisman bets on? And When did you get him in? Like, what do they look like right now?
Well, I will start from the bad to the good. The bad was Julian Say in Ohio State. I thought there was a really good chance he could have won the job, and I'm like, Ohio State's going to be top 3 team in the country. And Ohio State quarterback probably would be in the Heisman, but obviously Saying did not win the job. It's been
Was
Will
that like
Howard's job.
March that you had that in?
Was that?
Was that like March that you put in
That
like a safe
was
future?
in June.
Okay, yeah, it's still early.
Yeah, it's still early. So I got that in. I played Carson Beck to win the Heisman again. Same thing, quarterback on a top team. And then I bought some Quinn Ewers to win the Heisman when he missed a game. And I'm like, he's only going to miss a game or two. They beat Georgia. They're going to be number 1 in the country. Maybe a time to buy at a bad price. So those are the misses. However, there's this little ticket I have in my account right now that says Travis Hunter plus 6,000, aka 60-1, to win the Heisman Trophy, and that was also made in June.
Would that be your best win ever with a Heisman future?
For a Heisman future, and last year I wound up getting Jaden Daniels at like 30-1 at some point in October, but to take a chance on a flyer, and it was basically me going down the list of contenders before the year and just kind of saying, okay, well, what if Georgia does lose 3 games, or what if Arch does wind up beating out Ewers or playing a considerable amount of time, and Texas has a bit of a drop off. Well, Will Howard, they probably wouldn't give it to him. I don't think he's going to be a high. Like I just kind of went down like Drew Aller's not going to win the Heisman. I'm like, maybe this is a year where you've got an opportunity for a guy who I think a lot of people feel is going to be the best player, and if he could stay healthy and do what he does on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, I think he's got a real chance. And now to be holding that ticket with a couple of weeks left to go, I feel pretty good. And it's funny because I looked earlier today. One of my buddies sent me a text that at Circa, which I believe is in Colorado, and I'm gonna have to do some thinking over the next couple of days to figure out if I want to do this or not. He is you can get a yes/no price on Hunter to win the Heisman at plus 115. So do I want to hedge a little bit at plus 115 against the 60-1? I don't know. My hunch is that this ultimately comes down to Dillon Gabriel and Travis Hunter. I think if Oregon were to win out and win the Big Ten, and Colorado does not reach the Big 12 championship game, I think there's a chance Gabriel can win. I think some other people are kind of split on that. And I know I have not mentioned Ashton Jeanty. I just have a hard time thinking we're going to get to a point here where you've got either a Power 5 quarterback on the number 1 ranked team in the country, or a clear 2-way star who has an impact on both sides of the ball, that one of those two would not be awarded the trophy over a group of 5 running back. Is it harsh sounding? Is it maybe unfair? Yeah, but there have been people who haven't voted for a lot of worthy candidates for whatever reason. But I will say, I was kicking this around too on the Bear Bets pod before. Could you imagine a year where now Genty's going to win the Doak Walker? I mean, that's obvious. I mean, he is the best running back in the country. Could you imagine where you've got Genty winning the Doak Walker and potentially Nick Nash at San Jose State winning the Biletnikoff, like 2 group of 5 players from the Mountain West being like the best positional player in their respective positions over the course of that would be amazing. So we'll see if Nash can win over Jeremiah Smith and Travis Hunter at receiver. But goes to show that these awards certainly can be wide open. You can find some real ridiculous long shots.
Those 2 guys face each other this weekend as
they
well.
They do, and that is not a gimme game at all for Boise. Be very careful. You look at Boise's road games this year; they hung on UNLV in a game they very easily could have lost. Obviously, they played great at Oregon, but the game also on the road at Hawaii was a 6-point game, I think, in the fourth quarter before they ultimately pulled away. They did not look great last week against Nevada. Like, San Jose State can score, and they're pretty good against the run. Don't be surprised if you look up on Saturday and see that a very close game between Boise and San Jose State. And I wonder how ultimately that will affect Boise. Like, I think everybody feels like if they win out, they're going to be the group of 5 rep. But I think a lot of people also were just assuming that they were going to play UNLV again. And Colorado State, oh, by the way, is still undefeated in the Mountain West as well. Like, if you get a Boise, Colorado State Mountain West title game, like, what's the perception of that? Being you've got a Colorado State team that lost, 52-0 or whatever it was to Texas, and has some other like brutal non-conference losses in there as well. Like, does that ultimately affect them and maybe give a team like Tulane some hope, even though they have the 2 losses potentially?
If you can believe it or not, that is not the first mention on this show of San Jose State's run defense. Already brought it up. Yeah, we one fourth quarter rushing touchdown allowed by San Jose State this year, 0 runs of 20 yards. That's the key stat for Genty going into that matchup. Interesting thing that I don't want to wish into existence for the sake of your 60-1 ticket. Okay, I'm not doing this just to troll. I promise you I'm not. But if there is another hedge for you,
Okay.
or for anybody listening to this that is maybe out there with a Travis Hunter ticket and doesn't want to endure the stress of a guy that plays 140 snaps that can go down at any given moment, an interesting hedge, Shedeur at 40-1. All right, because baked into those odds already are the fact that he's on the same team as Travis Hunter, and we agree he's not the best player on his own team. But if he gets hurt and they play 2 or 3 games without him, and it's a 9-win Colorado team, or a Colorado team that goes on to win the Big 12 championship and wins it maybe without Travis Hunter on the field, Shedeur ends up with 40 touchdowns or something like that, and you're looking up going, man, this guy has turned himself into an unreal player. I'm not saying that that's a likely scenario. I'm saying that is a Travis Hunter hedge if you are searching for one outside of just, holding on to that ticket until the bitter end.
No, that's not a bad way to go about it either at all. What I do find interesting is how Deion Sanders has gotten fully behind and all in on Hunter being their Heisman candidate, and even Shedeur has as well. Like, we asked him last week on Big Noon Kickoff, like if you had one vote for the Heisman Trophy, who are you giving? And like, before we could even finish the sentence, I think it was Mark Ingram who asked it. It was like Travis. Travis is the best player, and so it's amazing. But the thing that I guess the one thing that I'm worried about with Colorado is, like, if he has a great game and they lose to Kansas, or they don't make the Big 12 championship game, like, what happens? Like that's I think that probably would be kind of the same situation with Shedeur as well. Even though the other bet that I did make when I was in Indiana a few weeks back, I did play Shedeur at plus 650 to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft next year. And there were a couple of nice boosts that I was able to use on that as well, that got that up to like a 9-1 as well, like a little 50% boost. So I think it's funny. You talk to the guys on our set, and Mark Ingram even said, like, you put him at Ohio State, you put him at USC, you put him at Georgia, you put him at one of these blue blood name programs, and Shedeur is the runaway Heisman Trophy winner right now. He's just right now, unfortunately, on the team with a unicorn right now, and doing things that the sport has never even seen, because he people want to say, oh, well, Charles Woodson did not have the impact on the offensive side of the ball that Travis Hunter did, not even close. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens the rest of the way. But hopefully we can get that Hunter ticket home, and hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully Colorado will be in the Big 12 title game. Looking forward to getting out there this week, because I'm really curious to see if Utah has any fight left in that game on Saturday morning, because I was talking to some people who, not the same people that were telling me about Nico, different people. I got a lot of people, just different people, but they had never seen the Utah football building and the facility there, the way they were Monday morning, just so much just sadness and just dejection in the way that game went on Saturday night. And now you got Rose out for the year. Offensively, how are they going to score? Like, if Colorado is able to get up early on Utah in that game, it could be another Heisman type profile game for Travis Hunter and that Colorado offense, because it's been a tough year for Colorado. Only so many injuries you can take before you finally say ultimately I give.
And for what it's worth, he's playing like 2 games every time he plays one. So even if he does get hurt, it's like, well, look at the snap count. That's probably something that should be working in his favor. Been a wild year. I want to get you out of here on a couple. national championship futures.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we were talking about earlier, 7 to 8 teams maybe that can win a title. And, it might just come down to who can stay healthy, who can get a favorable draw, who can play their best football down the stretch, obviously. But Georgia being at 8-1,
Oh,
correct me if I'm wrong. I've never seen it at that. If you have
no.
any sort of faith in Georgia, yeah, but that would be a stay away for you.
No. Here's the funny thing about that. After they lost to the first game of the year against Alabama, I went out and got plus 650 on them.
Yeah.
You're never going to see this price again. They're going to be in the playoff, and picking up that second loss, and now you got it 8-8, whatever it is, 758, 850. Like, it's still a play. They're a double-digit favorite at home this week against a team that might have their backup quarterback on the they're probably going to win this week. And then they're not going to with UMass, I think, after that. And then they got Georgia Tech. Like, if they win this week, they're in the playoff. And maybe they have to play a first-round game somewhere. Maybe they host. Maybe they don't. Maybe somehow they whatever. Who knows how the top 4 seeds are ultimately going to work out. But you're telling me in a one-game repeat situation over the course of 3 games, like Georgia, you're going to want to play them? Hell no. Not at all. So, yeah, Georgia is still a play. Ole Miss would be a play, and we were talking about this last week prior to the Georgia game. They were like 28-1, I think, last week to win the title. And we're like, probably if you think they're going to beat Georgia, like, you can't get to the playoff if you don't beat Georgia. If you beat Georgia, you're in the playoff more than likely, and then your price is slashed. And now you're looking at Ole Miss potentially 950, 10-1 to win the title. Like, based on based on the bracket now, like a first round game would be Ole Miss at Penn State. Like, you wouldn't like that Ole Miss front going against the Penn State offense. So if you're looking to play a team right now, Georgia and Ole Miss were the two that I would play. Even Ole Miss at the number that they are. If you didn't get on it last week, that's fine. But I think then obviously Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State, who I think are the three short shots right now. I wouldn't play any of those, particularly at these prices right now. But I do have an Ohio State or Georgia versus the field from before the year. Let me throw this out to you as well. I know we were talking about SEC teams and maybe someone being left out. Like, if you're Texas, and I know we all think Texas is on paper one of the best 3-4 teams in the country, talent-wise and efficiency-wise. Like, if you lose by 2 touchdowns on your home field to Georgia and you go to College Station and lose, like, you don't have a whole lot to hang your hat on. Again, like in the case of Indiana, like, okay, we think Indiana is one of the best at-large teams in the country. It's basically going to have to be the committee saying, hey, we think Texas is just better than Team B. Like, but if I'm Texas, I sure as hell don't want to mess around with fate if you happen to lose at Kyle Field.
It feels like they're already saying they think they're better, though. That's the thing, man. To have them at 3, when you look at the resume, and yeah, Penn State and Texas are both sitting in a really similar spot with the selection committee saying, yeah, we know the loss is really good. We know the wins aren't particularly great at this point. And whatever. We don't care. And they still just put them at those spots. And I think that's kind of the intrigue. And that's maybe the saving grace for Texas is if they do lose that game to A&M, and who knows? I mean, we could have just a slew of 10-2 SEC teams. It feels like it's setting up for that. But you got to feel pretty good with what the selection committee has said, these first 2 polls, to be at that spot, knowing what the resume is right now and knowing that, yeah, I mean, you'd ideally like to beat A&M, of course, and rack up that win. But yeah, it'll be fascinating to see the way that this plays out for the SEC and other teams that are sitting there at 10-2. One last thing for you, knowing Kirk as well as you do, you've known him for decades.
Yep.
I was wondering if you had a Ben story.
The funny thing is, Ben never really came out on the road regularly. I mean, he came out every now and then, and it was awesome just to have a dog sitting on the bus and just kind of be, I don't want to say be like the icebreaker or the tension breaker, but I mean, I'm to a point these days in a lot of cases where I like animals more than I do people. But no, it's been awesome to see Kirk bring him on the road the last couple of years on a regular basis. And he even said it in in his little piece. I went back and watched it after the show about how, look, being on the road, you miss family. You're on the road. You're in hotel rooms. It's different. And he gave him that little bit of peace in solace. And obviously it was was terrible what happened. And you kind of, when Kirk first tweeted about it, you're like, oh no, this, unfortunately, I don't think this is going to end well, because I think a lot of people have been in the shoe with the pet and cancer, and knowing the battle and the odds probably that they're facing, and how much they tend to hide pain. And a lot of times you don't realize it until it's too late. And even if you would have realized it earlier, you're probably were too late to begin with. But no, I hope he's doing okay. I've reached out to him, and I'm sure he's still kind of trying to deal with things, and he's a busy man with the season. So I'm gonna just been trading text and so. But yeah, it was great to see him bring the youngin on the road too. Kind of like an Uga situation,
Yeah.
where we just passed the torch on to the youngin down the road, and hopefully he can continue with Pete and bringing him on the road. But it is amazing that Ben became the cult hero that he did. I wish you would have brought him on the road more when I was there.
Right. It was almost like he, in a way, I mean, Ben kind of replaced you. I'm just.
You said that, not me.
I'm just saying.
I think Ben was in his life a hell of a lot more than I was. But no, it's like I say. Look, he said it, and I can totally get there with him. Like, we're on the road for 4 months straight, and spending, and now that he's doing the Amazon game, he's in a hotel room. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, more. He's in a hotel bedroom more often during football season than he is in his own home. And you don't see your family, you don't see your wife, you don't see your pets, you don't really deal with your kids as much anymore. And you're kind of looking for a little normalcy, a little something to give you a taste of home and comfort level. And that's what Ben did for him. And that's awesome. I'm the same way. I may be. You're in, okay, it's the time of the year now where it's like, okay, I can literally carry the hotel key swatch with me, like saying, what room am I in? Because it's like, you forget, like, okay, where I am, at what time zone is it? What city am I in? What time do I need to meet the crew for dinner? Where am I going? Okay, I'm in 309 this week. Okay. And it's, you have to be on the road for so many months. It does kind of, look, are some of these deals first world problems, and the fact that we get to cover a college football game for a living every week? Yeah, they are. But still, it's time away from home. It's all that stuff. And once the year's over, I'm sure there'll be an instance where you're back home in January, and then come like the end of February, you're like, God, I can't wait for the season to get here. I got to get out of the house again.
Amen. Oh, one last one.
Oh, you lied to me. You said
I did.
Okay.
Have you watched The Office all the way through yet?
No, I haven't.
Come on. You had surgery too, and that was
I know I did. You did. The surgery last year was unbelievable. Like that was when that nerve block wore off a couple of days after the operation. That was bad. But yeah, the surgery came, and then we had then it came into Christmas and then New Year's, and and I was still doing like the pods. I never did. Like I know I have to. It's still like on the DVR where we left off. And it's funny because I have listened and I probably shouldn't have, listening to the Office Ladies pod.
Good pod, yeah.
With Angela and
Jenna Fisher,
Jenna. Yeah. And it's like, I surely shouldn't have done this until I listened I watched the whole damn thing through.
Hey, you got plenty of time. Plenty of time. It's sitting there at the DVR. You're good, man. Safe travels on the way to Boulder. You're the best. We'll do this again, man.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate you.